Hey everyone, it's Brandy from Brandy Borough Astrology, back with Ellie Adams from Saturn Season Astrology and her YouTube channel, Let's F with Astrology. Welcome back, Ellie.
Thank you for having me. Yeah, this is a fun one.
This is a good one. So tonight's forensic astrology episode is about Marilyn Monroe and the death of Marilyn Monroe.
Yeah.
So, all sorts of theories about this one.
Yeah, I kind of feel like it's tinfoil hat time. Like my Scorpio Mercury's all over it.
My Neptune and Sagittarius in the 8th house loves this one. Yes, like I'm not a big conspiracy theory person, but this is one where I think some of the conspiracies might be valid.
Yeah.
Maybe. We'll look at the astrology charts and see. Yeah. So Marilyn Monroe, wow, found dead early morning of August 5th, 1962. Yeah, how far back do we want to go here, like with her story? So she's last seen the night before. She made contact with quite a few people.
Yeah, she seemed like a very busy person on the phone.
Yes.
Like lots of phone activity.
She was found dead with the phone receiver in her hand.
Oh, actually, I didn't. Yeah. So yeah.
Okay. You're right. Yes. And she was connected to many different people, many people in power. The Kennedys, JFK, Robert Kennedy. I even read having some connection with Jimmy Hoffa and those mafia people. I'm not sure. I didn't dive into that too far, but lots of different connections. Okay, good. Can fill in the holes here. Yeah. So definitely a lot of connections with different people, which part of that story brings all those conspiracies into play as well.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. Her death. I mean, it seems like there are multiple, just like from the different theories that exist, there are multiple groups that perhaps could have had a hand in this for various different reasons.
Right. Yeah. So do we want to just dive in? Oh, another thing, a little background about her. She did suffer, I guess, some depression. She regularly saw a psychiatrist who was actually there the night before as well, and was being treated too. So the fact that she had some depression also leads to one of the theories in her death. Her death certificate actually lists possible suicide as cause of death.
Yes, from barbiturate overdose.
Yes.
Multiple, it seems like, different. We just looked that up before. It seemed like it was multiple different ones.
I believe there's at least 3 different drugs that had a lethal dosage in her system. However you want to state that. But yeah, which chart should we start with?
Well, should we do the last scene?
Yeah, we'll do the last scene. And so she's last seen around 8 p.m. the night before. She had received a phone call from the brother-in-law of JFK and RFK, who was an actor, and a friendly phone call. And so she talked to him until about 7:45, and then her housekeeper, who was staying there that night, last saw her enter her room at 8 p.m. and that's the last time she's seen alive. Okay, how's that chart? Can we see it good, Ellie?
Yeah, yes.
Okay. So this is last seen, 8 p.m. LA. And yeah, Ellie, take it.
All right. Well, I noticed off the bat that the moon is in the 8th house. Moon is always co-ruler in these charts. So that doesn't bode. I mean, she's obviously not dead at this point, assuming that, and I mean, I have no reason to think that the person that saw her last is full of shit or anything, but assuming they're accurate in telling the truth. Obviously, we know she's not passed at this point, but it does kind of show things sort of moving in that direction. Same thing with the ascendant in Aquarius, and the traditional ruler Saturn in the 12th.
Yeah. Yeah. And even if there are actually some different theories about when she died. There's a couple other stories out there, but we do know she last talked to someone outside that house at 7:45. Yeah, and this chart has death markers, so it seems to be a good chart.
And that moon is applying with Saturn too. It's what like 4 degrees, something around there.
Yeah. And if there's a
Those things-
perpetrator, if there's someone involved, they're going to be represented by the sun in Leo, which is opposing Saturn, which is in Saturn's detriment there.
Yes, and even though it's like it's in the it's in the 6th house, it's so close to like it does. Yeah.
It's pretty much there. If you go by horary rules, 3 to 5 degrees from a cusp pretty much puts that planet in the next house. So I think it's pretty much right there on the 7th. I think you can consider that for sure.
Yeah. And this,
go ahead. Sorry.
No, I'm just kind of, this is the chart that I didn't have quite as much time with beforehand. So I'm just kind of like making as I'm.
That's because I told Ellie for about 4 days I was going to send her this chart. And I sent it like 5 minutes before we hit record. So the way I roll.
Going with the idea of there being a perpetrator, which from the death chart I am inclined to do. It does seeing Leo on the cusp of the 7th, and the sun right there, it does feel like a powerful person, a person perhaps in leadership of some kind, some kind of leader that quotes. Just it does kind of
a strong sun in Leo. Yeah, for sure. Someone in power, someone in the spotlight, someone in a strong position there for sure. And that 7th house is interesting too. You got Pluto there.
Yeah.
Uranus. You got Mercury right there, pretty close to the sun,
Feels like many people.
I'm just going to get kind of started early on the conspiracies here, but with that Mercury being right there in the sign of communication, who did she talk to this day? Who was she communicating with? And that might give you
I know that I know you're not actually asking me to do this, but I do have the Wikipedia article up that does talk about that. If you want me, I can throw out the names. I think it does talk about
that. And can you verify? I believe I'm going from memory here. I believe she spoke with Robert Kennedy that day, Bobby Kennedy.
Okay. Okay. Now, the person you were talking about before, the person tied to them, that's Peter Lawford.
Yeah, he's the brother.
Brother-in-law of JFK. He wanted her to go to his party. Let me see. Okay, at 7 to 7:15, she received a call from Joe DiMaggio Jr.
Right. Okay, that's the one she was talking to last, I believe. I got that mixed up. That was his son. She was married to his dad.
Yes. And then at 7:40 to 7:45, she telephoned her psychiatrist.
Okay.
To tell him to do a little gossiping, to tell him about that Joe DiMaggio and his girlfriend broke up. Trying to see if it says anybody else.
And I'm gonna do a quick search to see as well.
That's all. I think that's all. She met with somebody with possibility of doing publishing nude photos for Playboy. or through Playboy. She received a massage. Yeah.
Now, if we're going with the conclusion of suicide, does this sound like someone, I mean, planning on doing something like that, who's talking about publishing photos? And I mean, that's kind of weird to me.
It is. Well, there is one thing though that did happen that day. I was reading a Vanity Fair piece that was done on her. Well, I've got all my multiple fucking devices. My phone, I have all my shit out. She received. Let me find this. She received, and this is something that it seems like they kind of mentioned about her mood. She received some gift. She received some gift of like a stuffed tiger. The hell is that in this article? Yeah, she received the stuffed tiger or something. Seemed really, really sad when she got it. She was sitting out by her pool.
I think I've heard this.
And she was like holding it or something, looking really, really sad, and then left it there. And I guess there are pictures from like the crime scene photos where there's still like a stuffed animal out by the pool. So I don't know what that's all about, but what that was all about. But it seems like that's brought up a lot to talk about her mood or something.
Where her mind was at. Okay, right.
But
now there is a documentary on Netflix, which I watched. It was The Unheard Tapes. And I just kind of looked it up to verify some information. The person behind that, the author, Anthony Summers, he says that he found evidence that she got into a fight with Bobby Kennedy the day she died. Of course, she was linked romantically to him and JFK rumors, but I mean, apparently lots of people say it was a thing. So
yeah. So yeah, I mean, yes, and then that is definitely one of the theories that they were somehow involved in this.
And I'm not saying they are or not, but it's kind of an interesting theory to look at. Let's go back to this chart again. Yeah, so yeah, I find it interesting. The sun in Leo, maybe someone of power if they're involved. The fourth house being in Gemini, the fourth house of endings. Kind of interesting too, how she's found with a phone in her hand, and we're seeing kind of like some things here about communication and conversation. And Saturn, which represents her, Marilyn, right by that south node, things spiraling down. Yeah. Now, seeing this chart, I don't know. What do you think, Ellie? Do you see things that could represent suicide, or do you think this is more like someone's involved?
Well, okay, definitely from the death chart, I do think somebody else or others were. Yes, I do. I don't think this is a suicide. And looking at this, I mean, you have the rulers of, like, you know, the first house and the seventh house, and they are making contact. It is separating, but they are still making contact. So yeah, I mean, even in this one, it's I don't think this was a suicide.
And I find it interesting, the Venus in Virgo, so Venus in a fall in that seventh house, something about relationships here too. It's weird.
Yes, it is.
So you're saying the death chart? Do we want to look at the chart when, I guess it was from the death certificate time?
Yes, the 3:40 a.m. one.
Okay, and this is taken from her death certificate, basically when it's known that she is no longer alive.
Yeah, because it was around that time that who was it in the house? Somebody couldn't couldn't get her to answer her door or something, and so they went around back and that saw her unconscious and called, I believe, her doctor, her psychiatrist, I think, if I'm not mistaken.
I believe so. I think he came over and saw her through the window. I'm going from
I definitely remember something about the window being broken. Whoever got into her room broke a window to get in and found her. I believe it was a psychiatrist. I think the housekeeper called the psychiatrist or something.
I think so. Yeah. And she thought it was odd because it was like 3 a.m. The light was still on in the room and she was knocking on the door, getting no response. So yeah, she was like, something's not right here. That's the story anyway. And so this is the timestamp from the death certificate, and this is when we know she's gone. Which is,
Yes.
yeah, the chart is ruled by the moon in the 4th house of endings, right there by Venus.
Yes. Yes. And the now the rise, or not the rising, the descendant is in Capricorn.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're looking at Saturn again. Saturn's in the 8th. This makes me think, I mean, okay, I don't want anybody with 8th house stuff going on thinking that I'm thinking anything negative about the 8th house in a natal chart. Okay, I don't want anybody taking it that way. But from this kind of lens, it does seem like this person maybe was a little shady, maybe was a little underworldy. Maybe not the greatest company.
No. And if we use the previous rulers, if we kind of want to go that way as well, and look at where the sun is at now, because in the previous chart, the sun was the descendant ruler. Now the sun is, you know, in the 2nd house, but it's interesting that it's right by a north node in Leo as well. This is something about when you have that north node in Leo about having certain standards, things presenting a certain way. So yeah, you got someone kind of shady, things are supposed to look a certain way, and if they're not looking this way, we got to take care of it kind of energy here.
Yes. Yes. Presenting as an upstanding or upstanding values, an upstanding citizen, or whatever.
Yeah. Absolutely. Don't tarnish a reputation. Yeah, you got to look like you have. And I'm really not trying to go one direction here, but you do have, you know, the people in power. If you're looking at the president, if you're looking at Bobby Kennedy, which wasn't he, Secretary of State, I'm going from memory again, but like, you know, people in government positions, and also very, very known for being devout Catholics, and, you know, the religious status within this family as well. So kind of, I don't know, that kind of fits a little bit in this puzzle here. I don't know.
It does. It does, because I'm not totally sure if she was she planning on saying anything? Has that ever been?
I don't know if that's been confirmed, but I think that was the fear, that something was going to be said or leaked to maybe give evidence to that relationships or to the relationships. I'm not really sure which one, if it was JFK, if it was Bobby, I'm not quite sure, but there was some concern about what would be said, what would be made known.
Should we do the fixed stars? I did pull.
Yeah.
Because they are interesting, I think. Okay, so actually I wrote some of them down in my notes. Okay, so for her, the Cancer ascendant, this is right near a fixed star that it's at 11 degrees 13 minutes of Cancer, so it's pretty close to this.
Okay.
Okay, it represents hunting, besieging towns, the revenge of princes, which is kind of weird, trouble, disgrace, sickness, loss of fortune. And then for the moon, okay, for the moon, which is at 7 degrees 5 minutes of Libra, there's another fixed star at 8 degrees 16 minutes of Capricorn. Oh no, sorry, that's the Capricorn descendant. I'm crazy. Ignore what I just said. Okay,
Scratch that, what
one.
Ellie just said.
It's this one at 8 degrees Libra, which is close to obviously the 7-degree Libra moon. And I can't pronounce this one for shit, so I'm not even gonna try. Suave, well-bred, personal charm, dissipation, dramatic ability. Okay, now for the Capricorn descendant. The Capricorn descendant's at 10 degrees 57 minutes. So there was a fixed star near 8 degrees 16 minutes, a little bit further out, but still decently close. Points towards blindness, violent death, sickness, accidents, leadership, war, and detachment. And then for Saturn, the ruler of Capricorn, there's one at 5 degrees 34 minutes Aquarius. And it means keen intellect, good for business, and military and analysis. Yeah, so those came up. Kind of interesting.
It is interesting. Can we talk about that grand trine to the, I mean, you got the ascendant at 10 degrees Cancer, Neptune at 10 degrees Scorpio, and Jupiter at 10 degrees Pisces.
Yes.
If she is killed, I mean, this like just screams like the barbiturate overdose. Like, it's crazy tight grand trine with that ascendant.
Yes, it is. And both of those, I know usually we use, traditional rulership for this kind of stuff, but we also have the midheaven, right, at 24 Pisces, and Jupiter, traditional ruler, Neptune, modern ruler, both happen to be part of, you know what I mean? Part of that.
Like, let's make it look this way.
Yes, that's it. Yes. And it also feels like it can kind of back up the lack of clarity. Yeah. Like with the midheaven being there, there's already like this kind of like, what the fuck really happened? Like, and it could even be law enforcement that kind of feels like that too. The law enforcement could also be having something covered up. Not them covering it up, but like, it's not.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like, it's like somebody telling them, I could see somebody being like, this isn't something you need to deal with.
1960s, LA Police Department.
Well, yeah, that's true.
And mafia, right? If possible, mafia or whatever. That is a common story with a lot of famous murders in the 60s in LA. Yeah. The police, I'll just say, I mean, the police did help cover things up or would throw away evidence or.
Yeah, they did.
Sorry, it was a long time ago. So we can talk about it.
Yeah. This was a very long time ago. Let me see. Oh, this was another one I pulled. For Neptune, I did look at a fixed star for Neptune just because it's one of the rulers of the midheaven. It's near. There is a fixed star at 11 degrees 52 minutes of Scorpio, and sacrifice is one of the meanings. Oh,
well, isn't that interesting?
Yeah, I thought that was kind of and when I say sacrifice, I don't mean like you talk about like ritualistic sacrifice, and I don't mean it like that, but it's almost like she was I kind of take it like she was a sacrifice to whatever they were trying to not expose or have exposed. That's kind of how
I could even take that as being used a little bit. Yeah. So Yeah, this is, yeah, I just can't find anything that points to suicide in the astrology. You know, I mean, we know she was depressed. We know, you know, she struggled with some mental health. I get that, but you know, forensic astrology is so good at showing what happens and pretty consistent. You know, we see markers for suicide, we see markers for homicide. And this, I keep going the homicide direction here.
Well, yeah, especially yeah, and I mean like those. Okay, like here at this time, you know, you still have the moon applying with Saturn, but it's even tighter. So in both of those charts, right, you've got the rulers of the first and the seventh making contact
Yeah.
in both.
And going back to that traditional ruler of the 10th house in Pisces and with Jupiter, making an opposition to Pluto too. There's so many elements of power here.
Yes, there are. There are. Well, do you think that it was? Do you think it was like who do you think was involved? I'll just ask.
I think it was someone in power, someone of importance, somewhat religious. Yeah. I always have a problem with naming a name just because, like, what if I'm wrong here, right? Like, that's such a, like, not a right thing to do. But yeah. I think, you know, with the names I'm bringing up, I think it's pretty obvious who I think was at least behind it. Maybe their hands aren't dirty with it specifically, but they were behind it. And I think it was political people.
That's kind of how because I don't think that any of the people that I don't think that any of them actually did it.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't be surprised if they had employed specific people or a specific group to do this.
Yes. This kind of reminds me, and interesting, these are all in LA, reminds me of like the Sam Cooke death, Bobby Fuller, where there was a certain group probably behind the deaths and the law enforcement kind of didn't, they either hid it or didn't investigate real good or refused to really like reopen these things. And I'm kind of seeing the same kind of thing here in these charts. So yeah, a certain group of people responsible for the deaths, i.e. mob, mafia.
Yeah, I was gonna say, should I say it?
I'll say it. I'll say that.
Yeah, you know, there's, you know, the yeah, you know, okay, since you said that, you know, that Capricorn descendant also feels like there is something political about it, right? There is, because and government shit, and you know, the mob was in bed with our, I mean, with our government, and what is it, like called the family jewels documents of the CIA, all the fucked up shit they did. it's like all the skeletons in their closet. I mean, the mob was utilized for different things. Specifically, some people say that they were instrumental with JFK getting elected. Some people, they did, the CIA did reach out to them for killing Fidel Castro, trying to, which is also interesting. And I was mentioning this to you earlier. Should I go? Should I continue on?
Let's do it.
Okay. Okay, so, and I probably will pronounce this guy's name very wrong. So
that's okay. We do the best we can.
He was the boss of the Chicago outfit, Sam Giancana. No, it sounded very Texan. That did not sound Italian at all.
And there was a lot of, just a little other information. There was a lot of the Chicago mafia people involved in LA. I
Yes.
know the music business had them over there quite a bit, and I
Yes.
just from other cases I've looked at. So just wanted to put that out
Yes.
there.
Yeah, they had their like, yes, they were. And okay, so he was the boss of the Chicago outfit. He's the one that has kind of been mentioned as having a theorized as having a hand in this specifically. And what's interesting about that is in the family jewels documents that were like declassified or whatever. Supposedly the CIA enlisted him to kill Castro. And he said he would do it, but he wanted poison pills to do it. Now, this is interesting to me because when I think of the mafia, when I think of mob hits, I don't think of poison pills. I think of like you're sitting in your car and somebody, is in the back seat and strangles you, or you get a gunshot to the head. I don't think of poison pills. Now, I also realize we're talking about somebody trying to take out Fidel Castro. They might have to do a little bit differently, but I don't know. I do think that it's interesting. I guess I'd be curious to know if this was kind of this guy's MO. Or if it was just for this specific, because I don't know. I mean, she died from an overdose. I don't know what the fuck poison pills he was asking for, but I do think that it's interesting that there is at least a history of him asking to do a hit this way.
Yeah.
And not that long before Marilyn Monroe died. I can't remember the exact time, but it wasn't maybe a year or two. It wasn't that long. So I don't know. I do think that's interesting. And I also, when I think of the mob, and I realize it's a family thing, I do think of Aquarius. I do think of Aquarius, just because of Aquarius is like groups and shit like that.
Organizations.
Yes.
Yeah.
And even and yeah, and there's something about, and I'm not universally, but there's something about that Saturn in Aquarius in the 8th house with that Capricorn ascendant that does kind of make me think this is mob involved.
Funny business. Yeah. And it really bothers me to see like these sorts of cases and then be labeled as suicide. Like, that just gets me. And that this one bothers me because I just don't agree with that ruling. I don't.
No, I don't either. And they even and what they ruled it a suicide, but didn't they? What did you say they ruled it
Probable?
Yeah, that's not even definitive. You're saying fucking probable.
Let's see. I have the death certificate that I pulled up. That was, it's easy to find online. Probable suicide.
Yeah, see, that's not even like that's not even fucking set in stone to me. Probable. That's like, well, maybe we don't really know. We'll call it this.
Like, it's probably, yeah. They're not going to say for sure. Yeah. So I don't know. Yeah, that bothers me. What are there any other charts you wanted to look at? Do we want to look at her birth chart or progressions, or
we can look at any of those if you want to. I mean, I definitely looked at her birth chart a little bit. I know I'm the one that said, hey, let's look at progressions and stuff, but I never actually had a chance to look at it.
I know. Yeah, me and Ellie are professionals. Like when we're not doing the recordings, we're assisting clients, and we've had busy schedules. So, but yeah, we'll just look at her birth chart for fun here. Do I have the right chart up, Ellie?
Yes.
Okay, cool. June 1st, 1926. Fellow Gemini. I want to point that out. Fun, flirty, Gemini, Marilyn Monroe. Look at that sun in the 11th house with Mercury. Kind of interesting in the 11th house there. And that's her chart ruler too.
Yeah. There's a
social.
I think of the the 11th as, like, it can be a lot of things, but if you think of it as like one of the legacy houses,
Mm-hmm.
uh, uh, she definitely left a legacy. Like she absolutely did. So that's kind of interesting to that's something that stood out to me.
Yeah. The seventh house of marriage, relationships, and we know she struggles with relationships. And when we see generally, not for everybody, but a lot of times if you have a seventh house ruled by Saturn, so it could be like a Capricorn or Aquarius seventh house, these natives do better with relationships like after the age of 30 or later in life. A lot of times it's hard for them to have real successful relationships earlier in life. This is just an area of delay. So it kind of makes sense, a Saturn ruled seventh house, the challenges with relationships. And
it's very clear. I mean, even though her moon is in Aquarius, I mean, just having that moon in the 7th house, there is such a usually these people, there is an emotional focus on them. Like, even if it is kind of and in her case in Aquarius, it might be a little bit might be a little weirder. Might be, there's something a little different about it, but the focus definitely seems like it's
like a need for relationships.
Yes. Now I've got to wonder about those relationships with her 12th house with Cancer on the cusp and flowing into the 7th. That does make me think that
Oh,
those relationships may not always, because okay, I don't want to talk too much shit about the 12th house because I like the 12th house, but it can't, because I do, but that can be like hidden enemies, self-sabotage, bondage, things like that. You've got that flowing into the 7th. It's
not
like
as healthy, like per se. And that Venus and Aries, the Venus and detriment there, a lot of times Venus and Aries can fall in love really quickly and kind of goes right in instead of kind of slow and cautious, right? It's more like, let's just dive in and see what happens.
yes, that can, yes.
And I do find the North and South node fascinating here too. She's got the South node in the 6th house. So feeling like she has to be of service to people. I imagine like not being able to, a lot of times these people have a hard time saying no, like if someone needs something or they feel like there's certain expectations on them.
Yeah, and it's interesting, that you use that word like service, because there is I'm not like a Marilyn Monroe historian, but the things that I do know about her, it does seem like there was an element of needing to serve in some kind of a way. That's actually a really good way that I would like to think about her in my mind.
Yeah.
Not in like the traditional service fields, but
Right. Serve in some sort of way. This is also be like taking care of people. It can be like and sometimes these people can put themselves kind of in what do I want to say, kind of a place of not feeling like they're free to make a lot of choices, feeling like they're especially in a sign like Capricorn, feeling like they're restricted.
I was gonna say that in Capricorn. I just realized her South Node's conjunct my moon.
Get out.
Yeah, my moon's at 1603. Close. That doesn't even matter here. But
that's a fun fact. Yeah. And had she lived, I imagine around the time she died, because she was what, 36, if am I doing that math right?
Yes, she had just turned 36.
She was really probably heading in the direction of that North Node in the 12th house in Cancer, more about taking care of the self, isolating, getting out of being of service to people and being more of service to herself, and that makes me sad that she didn't get to live longer to get there,
To experience that.
Yeah. Now, if we want to go like evolutionary here with this Pluto opposing that south node, like in a past life, she had, you see this, if you believe in past lives, you see this in natives who in a past life have been like killed or had some sort of violent ending to their life.
Yeah, that's, yeah, that,
That's eerie to
that's,
me.
yes, it is. It is. And the 12th, in the 12th, it seems kind of imprisoning.
Mhm.
Um, yeah.
Yeah. So interesting natal chart there.
Should we pull the? Like I said, I didn't get a chance to look, but somebody in when we did the Lacey Peterson one, they mentioned that they would have loved to have seen the progressions, the secondary progressions. They didn't say solar arcs, but I like solar arcs. So
well, I can't tell which is which, so let's see which pops up. We might do a little here. Which one is it? I can't see. Here it is.
this is secondary
Progressions. Okay. So here we go. And Ellie graciously provided us with this chart.
Yeah, I was trying to see if there was like anything that really, really stupid. Okay,
So we
well,
have
yeah,
our
that's not
natal
that.
chart and what Placidus here with the outside green planets as the progressions, correct?
Yeah. Yes. And with secondary progressions, the outer planets will barely move. Saturn and Jupiter really don't move a whole bunch either.
So we're looking
it's
at
really like
planets.
Yeah, it's really the sun through Mars that you're. I mean, you can look at the other ones too, but it's really those that you kind of want to.
Well, it looks like the sun is almost conjunct that north node there in the 12th house, right on that 12th house cusp.
Oh yeah, it is. Yeah, it's yeah, it is. It's within like what, a degree and a half or something.
Right. That's interesting.
Yeah, it is. And right between that Pluto. Yep, right between both Pluto and yeah, that's interesting. Kind of lighting up that node. Now I do know on like death stuff, a lot of the time I have noticed that a lot of times the nodes are activated. Um Either through, like transits or secondary progression, solar arcs, the nodes are, and even the rulers are activated in some kind of, not all the time, but a lot.
Right.
Yeah, that is interesting.
Very
Where's
interesting.
that? Where's that? Oh, is that midheaven? Oh, that midheaven, that progressed midheaven is right on her sun, isn't it?
Oh,
Yep,
right. Let's see.
it is.
I was gonna see what to do. Progressed midheaven. Is that 10 degrees Gemini? Yes.
It's right on it.
Yeah. So what is she more famous for? Acting or her death, I wonder. Depends on the person, I guess, generation.
I mean, yeah, I guess that does. Yeah, that does kind of depend on the. I think like I don't know. It probably sounds awful. I mean, I probably know more about her death than I do about the movie she was in.
Yeah.
But that is, I mean, I realized when I was born, it had been, so many years since.
But Venus is right there too, and not only her death makes her very famous, but just the icon, like being beautiful, being the way she looked. Her looks were probably more famous than the acting career.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's that. Do we want to share the solar arcs?
Sure.
All right. Let's see which one that is. Sorry, I got to find it on my screen here. I should be sharing, but there we go.
Okay, where's that? Hold on. Let me see here. Woo! Okay, so the transiting node or sorry, not transiting, solar arc node, north node, is conjunct within a degree, it looks like, or
Neptune.
less than a degree. Yeah, Neptune, which is one of the rulers of her eighth house.
Yeah.
Kind of, I don't know, deathy. I also want to make it clear, I'm not trying to say people that have this going on right now, and you know, if you got something similar, I'm not at all saying that you're gonna die
Right.
or anything like that.
Yeah.
Strictly
Yeah,
in the
you
context.
can't predict death with astrology. You just can't, because it can look like so many different things. You know, sky uses what it has, and yeah, this is not like this is happening in your chart. You're not going to die. You know, so
Yeah, but like, yeah, but from like a retrospective lens of looking at it like this, I mean, yeah, it's kind of it you can look for patterns, or you know, things that tend to stick out more often.
what's also, I'm going to look at the degrees of this before I quite say it. Yeah, you got that Mars Uranus conjunction right on Venus too. The arc.
Oh, is it?
On her natal
Yeah.
Venus. Yeah, that's, see, things from the death chart, from the last scene, we're looking at this, things keep pointing to relationship and Venus, and it's kind of, it keeps popping up.
Well, even in the other chart, you know, when you mentioned Venus, progress Venus, right?
Mhm.
Like not only her beauty, but relationships. She was known for those too, right?
Yep.
Like again, like I probably would know more about that kind of stuff, or the possible ones, than I would again know about her actual career. So that is part of the legacy, if you will.
Sure. Yeah. Anything else about this?
Maybe perhaps that okay. So the solar arc midheaven is also right on it, right on the sun, even closer. This one's at 10:33, and then the sun is at 10:27. And I do know that with solar arcs, I will say this with solar arcs specifically, when the solar arc angles make contact with natal planets, or when natal planets or the angles where the solar arc angles make contact with like natal planets, things happen, like events happen. That
You're
doesn't
talking about
necessarily
with
have
like the angular houses, or like, are
I
you,
mean
go ahead.
the major angles, like when the solar arc ascendant, right? Like you'll see the AC, you know, when it makes a contact with like a natal planet, or like in the case of the solar arc midheaven making a contact with the sun.
Gotcha.
These are like events. Same thing when you have solar arc planets making contact with the natal angles.
Right.
Events. Actual, a lot of times with solar arcs, it is more like internal. It is more like not necessarily events, but when you see those kinds of things, those are like events that happen.
Right.
Not necessarily this kind of event,
But something significant of some sorts, right?
yes,
Not always death,
yes.
but
Not always this. I mean, it could be like I recently had solar arc Pluto conjunct my ascendant. Yeah,
that was fun, right?
It was I got divorced, so it was a big transformation. You know, a big an actual event, right?
And she's got Pluto here close to her ascendant. Is that like similar to what you were?
No, I mean mine was like my ascendant's like at 1559. It was like
Right there.
But looking at it from like that kind of a lens, where is the Pluto's at 1750? So
Yeah,
probably
about 4 degrees, 3 to 4 degrees.
Maybe 4 years before this, maybe 1958, 1957. 1959. There could have been I don't totally know everything about her history, but there could have been something that massively transformed her, like, you know, the way she approached the world. There could have been.
Gotcha. Fascinating.
Yeah. Yeah, it really is. If anybody has any other things they want to throw out as you're watching this, about any of that, about anything.
Yeah, share what you know. And yeah, my conclusion from this, I just don't think she died from suicide. I think yes, while she did struggle with depression and mental health, that this was I just feel like there was some foul play here, and it was done in a way that could have made sense for a suicide.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, and I feel like with her, mental health struggles, and especially back then when it wasn't as talked about, it wasn't as accepted, right? For for people to have struggles, it wasn't as accepted.
Mhm.
It seems like it could have made her like an easy mark for something like this. Not that's probably the wrong way to say that, but it's like, oh, this is going on.
We can make it
We
look
can
like
do.
this.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
I'm on the same page.
My opinion. I have a strong opinion about this one. So, or if you guys see anything that suggests differently in the charts, love to hear your thoughts as well. And we'll have, go ahead.
I would also like to point out, a lot of these people that have been named in relation to this all died pretty violently.
Yeah.
I mean, they did. I mean, one of them got, their head blown off in a car in Dallas. One of them wasn't it at a, try not to say names. One of them was at a hotel right after I can't really remember, but he was, in public.
1968.
And
Yeah.
then the mob boss, he was killed in his home cooking sausage. Like, what was it? 7 shots, 11 shots?
Yeah.
Broke in.
So all the people surrounding her that she was tied to, except for Joe DiMaggio, a lot of them met violent endings. Yeah.
Yeah, they did. And it wasn't like it was a whole lot later than this. I mean, I think the mob guy was talking about maybe died in the 70s, but yeah, I mean, they all kind of, that does stand out to me.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. So, yep, share your thoughts, and I'll have the number for the suicide prevention hotline, because I know we did discuss suicide, and if anyone is struggling with that, please reach out and get help. And yeah, until next time, Ellie, before we sign off, where can they find you?
Okay, y'all can find me on YouTube at Let's App with Astrology. You can find me on Instagram at Saturn Season Astrology. Find me on my website at saturnseason.com. I think that's, yeah.
And you guys can find me at brandyburrowastrology.com. And if you want to find Ellie and can't find her, get a hold of me. I'll get you connected.
And same thing, because this will be eventually posted on the other one online too. So I will put where you can be found.
At brandyburrowastrology.com and Brandy Burrow Astrology on Instagram and YouTube. And Ellie, we forgot. Should we let everybody know what we do now?
Fuck yeah. Do it.
All right. Ellie, you put this so much more eloquently, but basically, you have a loved one who died mysteriously, or maybe one missing, and you would like me and Ellie to look at your case, of course, not for a YouTube episode, but to have us help you, please reach out. We are taking cases now.
Yes, we can. We'll, with our powers combined, we can.
We will try to help and give some insight.
Yeah, and with this kind of stuff, it is, it is good to have. It really is good to have multiple eyes on these kind. I think it is anyway.
It's helpful. Or if you know someone who you think we could help, go ahead and have them reach out to us.
And again, this is not for, just to reiterate what you said, this would not be for a video or for a topic on either of our channels. It would be strictly a private, one-on-two.
Private consultation.
Yeah.
Absolutely. All right. Well, with that, we'll go ahead and sign off. Until next time, thank you, Ellie, for joining me again. And I look forward to the next one.
Thank you for wanting to keep doing these.
Oh, yeah. And please like and subscribe to both of our channels and the videos. So let us know we got your support.
Yes, we'd love that.
All right. Bye, guys.